Good afternoon. I hope you had a nice lunch here just now and are not too tired, and we'll speak about the weather a little bit. So one thing I have to say up front, I am a meteorologist and I know a lot about data analytics, but I'm very new to Tableau. So please don't come up with the tough Tableau questions. Come up with the weather questions, but not those. Let's take a look at what we'll talk about today. I'll have a little introduction on why we use weather data, why you should be using weather data. I have prepared a couple of use cases and how it works with Tableau, and also how you can get started. And we will have vouchers here. My colleague Matthew is in the back. We have little cards for you so you can see how to get in touch with us and get your trial if you want to trial weather data. So let's take a look at what we've done before.
Today's secret ingredient is weather data! Ladies and gentlemen, the 2018 IBM champion is Timothy!
Okay, who was there last year? Okay, so a couple of people. I know there will be another Iron Viz tomorrow, but it will probably not be with weather data. So about our weather story, why do we even use weather data? And probably a lot of you are in data science or do something like that, and you probably deal with a lot of data sources. And let me tell you, us meteorologists, that is all we have ever done. We use a lot of different sensor data. We use data from this video is showing it, sorry.
Ingredient.
Oh, I need to. Oh, okay, sorry. So we use a lot of different sensor data. You may have seen weather stations somewhere. So we use governmental weather stations. We use a network of a lot of different private weather stations that you may have in your backyard, that one of my colleagues may have, or even one of our industrial clients, something like that. We use data from connected cars. We use data from mobile phones. So if you take a look at your phone, the proprietary weather app on an iPhone and on a Samsung phone is from the weather company, and we get barometric pressure data back from it. We also use data out of airplane flights, so there are sensors in the backs of airplanes, and we get a data of about 50,000 flights per day. And we use all that data to give you precise weather data for current data that's mapped on a 500-meter global resolution. And of course, you know, sensor data, that's just right now. In meteorology, we also do forecasting. And how do we do this? With the weather company, we use global forecasting models from the big meteorological agencies, from the European Center for Mid-Range Weather Forecast, from the National Weather Service in the US, the UK Met Office. We use data from Japan, from all over the world. And we're able to blend all this data together. So we use these at the moment more than 170 different weather forecasting models. So these are model outputs. Some of them are just, you know, with different starting positions. And we don't just do a statistical medium. What we do is we use machine learning to weight these models by their performance, by variable, by region, to get the best forecast possible. And so use this, okay. And what we can then do is we have a platform that is able to deliver this data with very little lag. So usually the lag time of the internet is more than what our platform will need. We update those weather conditions every 5 minutes. We update forecasts every 15 minutes. We can offer a 15-day forecast, hourly, daily, whichever you like. And we have very specific usage forecasts as well. And one of the impressive numbers is since we serve so many different data sources in the end as well, we have 7 times as many calls to our platform than Google does. Okay, and what do we do with this weather data? Why does it matter? I took a look around and I've noticed that last year, Q2, and a lot of you probably experienced that too, we had a very specific weather in Europe. Through most of Central and Northern Europe, we had very warm weather in April already. And beverage sales in the Nordics, this is a number for Germany, went up very high during that time. At the same time, they went down in Spain and Portugal because it was really cold there. I can tell you, I was there for a week and it was horrible weather in May in Portugal last year. And that is something where you can, of course, come into this as well. Next, a little exhibit of what weather does. Of course, it influences us, and mortality rates go up if the temperature goes up. And there are studies on this, in this case from Germany. So if the heat of the summer starts very early, the mortality spikes because people can't get adjusted to it. Overall mortality in the months between December and March is higher because the cold gives people colds, fevers, whatever. But if the summer heat spikes too soon, then that will increase mortality. And that is something in the hospital area, maybe you need to be prepared for that, right? So you see there are a lot of different influence factors where weather is important. And what do we do with Tableau? We have partnered with Tableau to give you an offering as well, and this is in 2 different ways. So we have our own analytics product that is weather signals that can do the data scientist for our client. We have our own machine learning algorithms that we use to correlate data. In a lot of cases that's sales data, but that's also, I'll have some examples later, that can be from manufacturing, that can be from agriculture. And we will do that for you, and you can then use it with Tableau, but you can also use our data within Tableau. So we have packed historical and forecast data packages and have web data connectors for it, so you can just load that into it and use that, and these packages are matched, so it's easy to use. And just to give you an idea of what the kind of different approaches there are. So of course we have historical data, we have current data, we have forecast data, and within those areas there are different use cases. You will always need historical data to correlate with the data that you have. But the important thing with weather data is we can also do a forecast, and you can match that with your forecast according to the findings you had from your historical data. And the weather forecast I already mentioned is 15 days, but we can also go out into the future more. We have a seasonal product that can give you an indication of what the weather will be a few months from now. It's not exactly like a normal weather forecast. We usually try to explain how it really works because it's a little bit different. It is the derivation of what you would expect from a climatological view. So it's not the same. It's not tomorrow will be 27 degrees in Berlin and on August 5th it will be 2. That's not the same thing, okay? So yes, when we look to the past, we try to find our models, find our financial review. When we look to when we look at right now, we can do advertising already. We can take a look at our stock, and we have clients that use demand planning for their fresh produce, for instance. We have clients that look at what is yield outcome in a couple of months. We have clients that use our data to push their advertising and marketing in the right space of time. And I even have an example for that. So Scott's Miracle-Gro, together with a partner of IBM, has developed a integrated platform where they use weather data for marketing and for other purposes, financial purposes. And this specific example is from last year. This is in North America. So April looked to be very cold in those seasonal forecasts for North America, which is why they knew they have plants in hardware stores and all of that, and they knew that in April they wouldn't be selling much because if it's rainy and cold, people will not buy those plants. So they pushed their marketing budget further back into May, and were able to adapt to this. And the rest of the industries, while they saw sales decreases, they saw increases. And if you use this data in the right way, that's where you can get with that. Next example. This is a manufacturing example from Germany. Specifically, these were aluminum parts, and the company came to us and they said, well, we are seeing these spikes in quality problems up to 40%, and we've tried to figure it out in the factory. We could not find what it is. We are suspecting it could be weather. And I need to switch to my workbook here. Hold on. No, that's... Oh, hold on. This is the one. Okay, so let's take a look at the scrap rate. And they took a look at this. And as you can see on this map, there is not really an indication that when they produce more, when you take a look at it on the timeline up here, with more production, they didn't have more of those quality issues. And but we can also see that it's kind of random when where they're spread and all of that. And then we took a look at data, on the timeline, and we saw some specific spikes already. And if we keep moving into this, okay, so we correlated this with different weather variables. And we found out that dew point temperature, which is connected to humidity, was really high in these instances. So you can see here that, it was an increase for a couple of days, and only October 12 and 13 were the really tough ones where they had the quality problems. And so with dew point temperature, that is something you only have real spikes in these in certain weather events, or if you're in the wrong location. I always say if your factory is located in the Mississippi Delta, I would say move it. But if it's somewhere in central Germany, you will only have specific days when that happens. And there are different measures you can take. For instance, one of them would be, of course, if it's 40% rate, maybe we should shut it down for those 2 days. But you could also move in an AC if there's the possibility to. But those decisions are what the clients have to make, but they will be able, with the forecast, with that 15-day forecast, they will be able to see that in advance. They can do the hourly forecast, and they can even, with the hourly forecast, you can take a look at and say, okay, it's only going to happen next week on Tuesday between 6 and 9, so we'll turn it off until 10 and then start, something like that. Okay? So, back to my presentation. Okay. Yes. Next example is out of retail, and I already said there are a couple of things we can look at in retail, and this is something, the way we behave when we shop is influenced by the weather a lot, where the weather influences our emotions. And we even have products that are based on the findings we have out of these retail data. So we have a product we call Weather FX, which is weather-triggered marketing, where marketing gets triggered for specific product groups only in the weather and region where that is specific. And need to go back to my workbooks again. Okay, so this is the right one. So this data has been anonymized, but it is a good example of what you can see in here. So let's go to this one store, and we can see there are little, this is in Italian deli, and we have different product groups here. And we can already see that there are different weather variables that we checked with this. And we can, of course, and you know this better than I do with Tableau, you can go by group and take a look at the different influences there are. And with having all of that data, again, you can do the forecast and restaff either your cafe, and you're going to be selling more in your ice cream cafe that weekend, or also know, okay, if this is beverages that are going to be selling very high on in the weather like that we are expecting for the next 2 weeks, we need to restock beverages. Okay, and in this case, let's take a look at the ham here. And sometimes these are very interesting. A higher maximum pressure, I would say that's nothing we see or feel when we go outside, but it's something we can find in the data, okay? And of course, we can also take a look at when we lower that, stuff like that, what do we do with that? And when we took a look at the sales forecast, and that's what I just said, of course, we can go into this and stock this according to the forecast. And what you see with weather data, you have a lot of different variables. The standard variables are 10, 15, 20 variables that you can use already. And you will find something you may not be prepared for. For instance, one of my favorites is juice is sold more when the temperatures aren't too high and it's windy. Think about it. Okay. Good. So what else do we have? Yes, a little bit into the data. I briefly talked about the data before. So as I told you before, we have the historical and forecasting data packages that are available via web connectors already. What we have as APIs at the weather company, what we can use additionally, of course, is we have a core data package. We have this enhanced current conditions data package, which is just like core and enhanced forecast gridded on a 500 by 500 meter grid globally, which is important. That's not something you can just get off of a weather station. This is data that is there so you can cover the world in your analytics, and you can match it to your data, right? Enhanced forecast. Of course, I talked about 15 days, but we also have something in the very short distance. We have 15-minute forecasts for the next 7 hours. We also have weather visualization layers. So if you use Mapbox on Tableau, you can use that as well. We have the seasonal data. We have severe weather. This is specifically when there's storms approaching. So here in Europe, it would be more in the winter. When we have issues with storms approaching, or in the Mediterranean also in the fall, it is something to watch the storm tracks, use that data as well. And we have special data for industries. We have renewables forecast, which is, this specific renewable data you need for wind energy. You need you don't just need wind speed and wind direction, you also need air density. We can do forecasts for solar irradiance as well. We have lifestyle indices, which is everything from Poland to running weather to golf weather. And let me give you a short overview of what the data will actually look like. So the historical data that we've prepared for Tableau is available for 11 countries at the moment. If your country isn't there and you really want to get started with us, we can make that possible, of course. This is postal code centric, so I talked about the 500-meter grid, but for Tableau, we've gridded it to postal codes. Same with the forecast, so it matches, of course. It's 3.5 years of data, and you have an aggregation of intraday and daily data. And well, same, of course, for the forecast, which is 15 days, right? And I already said a little bit about seasonal forecasting. Here you get a little bit of a view of what it would look like. So this is data. Usually when you take a look at that, you have these areas where it will be this kind of temperature and stuff like that. As I said earlier, it's not like a forecast where you have city, different temperatures and stuff like that, okay? So, are there any questions at the moment? I don't even know how you could tell me your questions, to be honest. Yes. So, how do we get started? You can go to our website and request a trial. You can also join us at our booth over there. It's when you get into the entrance to the right. My colleague Matthew also has a few flyers with him. You can ask him for that. And I think you saw my email address if you want to get in touch with us. We also have another session tomorrow, which will be an hour-long session with our client legends, which will really be interesting because they'll be talking out of their perspective what they have done with our data. Yes. Okay, so thank you for coming. I'm still here because I still have a few minutes. If you have any questions, come right up. My colleagues are here too.